My name is Sarah Burton. I'm the VP of Marketing for the Business and Tourism Society, and I'm going to be introducing our speaker for this session. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mike Hayes. Mike is a self-professed marketing guy who studied at Dalhousie University before moving to the Centre of Advertising Universe in London, England, where he learned his craft at J. Walter Thompson with great brands such as Kraft, General Foods, Teacher's Whisky, Rolex, Unilever, and Pizza Hut. Upon his return to his hometown in Halifax, Mike applied his knowledge to clients such as Labatt, Atlantic Lottery, Aliant and Sobeys while at CCL, which is now called Color. He then took his skills to an IT startup called CrossOff Incorporated and acquired 16 companies over a 3-year span. 5 years ago, he got involved in another startup called Harbour Security, and then he helped build that into a national brand. He's now dreaming big on another new company called Aliant Factory, where Mike is currently Foreman and Factory Owner. In his 25 years in the marketing field, he's co-authored 1 book, took a company public, and proudly registered his name on a Canadian patent. He believes that good marketing is the key to leveraging competitive advantage and business success. So I'd like to ask you to join me in welcoming Mike Hayes.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Can you hear me all right? I'll try and stay at this level if I can. Wow, a great crowd. I think I've been at this conference for 8 years or something like that, either as an attendee or at dinner, and I don't think I've seen a crowd this big, so it kind of scared me a little bit with the number of people that were going to show up for this presentation, because I thought we'd have a small, intimate group, and we'd try and make it interactive, and we'll still do that. So have a little bit of fun with it. I think what I can do in a kind of a setting like this is help to take some of the stuff that I've learned over the past 20 or more years in the marketing field, and hopefully translate a little bit of it for people that are coming out full of vim, vigor, and vitality, and lots of energy in studying sort of marketing or marketing-related courses. So I just want to try and connect sort of, I guess, the real world with sort of what you learn here, and use a couple of real world examples to help us to understand that great world of marketing. A little bit about me. Thank you for the intro. I think I wrote that, so that was great. One of the things that I've really found in my career over the years has been that every day I have to prove myself. And I don't know if that's always true for every other profession. Maybe not the same for a PEng, because they have a professional certification. Maybe not for a CA, because they've written all their exams and they've received that professional certification. But I find that marketers every day have to prove themselves to people inside, obviously, their own company, their own stakeholders, but also outside. And your last sort of success is essentially your calling card. So you want to have a lot of successes. So just I'm a passionate marketer. I'm really like to see a lot of the things, and I hope to get something out of this myself. That you're a great target market, soon to be high earning, young urban professionals with lots of spending power. So I want to learn a little bit today about what moves and motivates you, and what you learn and what you hear, and hopefully I can get away from the presentation a little bit smarter as well. And that is, I guess, the key for today is we always got to keep learning. Never stop learning. You may finish and leave school, but then you got to learn on the road of life. And so hopefully I'll be able to impart a little bit of that knowledge today. Focus on the title. Someone asked me, why is there 7 things? And I said, because it was easier than 10. And I actually came up with 6, and then someone helped me come up with the 7th. But just a little, pick up on some of the things that I've been experiencing in a lot of the work that I do daily. I am a professional consultant. I call myself a free agent. I'm essentially a gun for hire. I tend to get involved in a lot of marketing projects, but I also do a lot of business transformation and business growth. But at the end of the day, people know me as a marketing guy, so that's where a lot of the my work is. I'm not here to tell you that what you learned for the last 2, 3, 4 years is wrong. I'm not here to tell you that your professors aren't up to date on all the things that go on in the great marketing world. What I'm here to do is to connect. And you know, I myself, I went to Dalhousie, I studied marketing there, and I still remember things that I learned there from professors whose names I still remember that I apply every day in my craft. What we're here is try to sort of mix things together and try and bring out the best of all. The things that I remember, fundamentals of marketing, 4 Ps of marketing. Sometimes they're calling them 4 Cs now, 5 Cs, 5 Ps. It keeps changing, but at the end of the day, it all comes back to the same thing. I remember consumer behavior, and I remember what makes people tick. How does their social makeup make them make decisions, and one person might make a decision or a judgment call that's different from another. I strangely still remember stuff from production management. Just to see if you're all awake there. I don't know why, but it's the Benihana case for batch processing. 25 years ago, I still remember. I don't know if they still teach it, do they? Yeah, probably. Thanks very much to Professor Sandy Finley for asking me to come today. Let's get on and tackle the subjects, and let's see what we can do at the end of this to sort of see what we can do to put a value on marketing. First thing I want to do is just introduce you to the 7 subjects that I'm going to cover off. So social media, branding, internet marketing, creating demand, measuring ROI, word of mouth, and ideas. And just I'll give you a hint at the end because it is going to be interactive. I'll be interested in you have number 8 or number 9 or number 10 from our discussions when we get to the Q&A session. If you have any questions along the way, just shout. And we can stop and take some time on any one of these sort of subjects. So the first one, social media, I had to start with because it's one of my favorite, with the insight that social media is bullshit. How many people here are on social media? How many people are not? I bet you are.
Well, I'm on the Mounds Facebook, but that's it.
Okay. Let's start with a little quiz. What is the most popular social media platform in the world?
YouTube.
Most popular. The answer is Facebook by a wide margin. Second most popular. YouTube. You're all wrong. Believe it or not, the second most popular Q2 study 2013, Google+. It just surpassed YouTube. And that's what I said. Really? Now, it helps that when you set up a Gmail account, you have to be part of Google+, so they've kind of used a great strategy to kind of, entangle you with all of their sort of products. But watch it. Google+, I was at a conference a year ago. They said Google+ is on the rise. Well, it was going from 0 to 20. Right? So it was on the rise, but it really wasn't making a lot of impact. But Google is, they're smart people there, and they're entangling people, and they are building some very nice products like Google Hangout that work with Google+. So big surprise to obviously a lot of people that they are number 2 just in the second quarter. Fastest growing social media platform. Pinterest? Google+. So fastest growing in terms of year-over-year growth. It's actually Pinterest. Fastest growing. And I believe LinkedIn was close behind. Most popular social media platform with older people. Most popular is actually LinkedIn. Most popular for business? LinkedIn. Who is not on LinkedIn here? Okay, keep your hands up, put your hand up. Who's going to get on LinkedIn after this presentation? It is growing like stink. It is the number 1 social media platform for business. And is anyone here in the market for jobs, maybe? Okay, it is the number 1 recruitment tool known to man. And it's just amazing how fast people are getting on LinkedIn and starting to understand the power of the actual platform itself. So if you're not on it, get on it. Now here's a strange statistic I thought we'd start off with when I say that social media is bullshit. 93% of marketers use social media for business. 93% of marketers use social media for business. So why do I say that social media is bullshit?
Maybe because it's so highly saturated that your message gets lost in the mix. If you're one of the few people who goes viral or whatever, then it's great. You're that lucky one. But it's so heavily saturated that really you just get lost in the mix. It'd be better to put on a chicken suit and run around downtown with a flashing sign in your hand.
It's a really good point. Yep.
You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in marketing and you're not hitting your exact target market.
Sometimes.
Everyone is on social media.
Yeah, and it's instantaneous, right? But it's also perishable, right? I can give you yesterday's newspaper and you can read it, but who cares about the tweet that happened yesterday at 2:45, right? So I think what it comes back to, though, is understanding sort of what social media is supposed to do for you, and where does it fit? What is the context for social media? It is really, really popular, and if you just Google any blog on social media, you'll read and ad nauseum about how wonderful it is and everything else. And you just got to take it, I guess, all with a grain of salt. A friend of mine asked me the other day, why is it that companies are going all crazy, falling over themselves to get onto social media? Like corporations and small businesses. Why is everybody doing it? And I thought for a second. I said, well, I say the first thing is because their competition is, and they feel that they might be missing out. So they're jumping into it. They're hiring community managers. They're putting people on it and sort of say, I don't know what you do, you young people, but go out there and blog, tweet, and talk about stuff and engage the community and tell me how it works. And so that's the first thing. They go out there kind of blindly. And then the second thing is it's free.
I think you said the most important part when you're going out blindly and not actually going for search engine optimization or anything like that. A tweet built on keywords and such, you might forget it, but if you put in Google and you keep working on your keywords and stuff, you're going to end up on page 1, which is going to equate to more people finding your website business.
What's your name?
Christina Strawberry.
Christina, I'm going to call upon you when we get to the internet marketing thing, because you obviously know a little bit about this. So nobody wants to be left behind, and it's free. So we're a little bit crazy about it right now. Here's an old school quote from a man named David Ogilvy. Anybody know who he is?
Ogilvy on advertising.
That wrote a couple of books in the 60s that are still pretty relevant today. My favorite, and it's not my favorite quote, but this is a great one. Don't tell my wife I said this. Your consumer isn't a moron. She is a wife. She is your wife. That's David Ogilvy from the, I think, 1962 book, Confessions of an Advertising Man. And all what he was trying to say was you got to understand your consumer and treat them with respect, right? You can't just bang them over the head, throw a lot of social media, throw a lot of email marketing at them and expect them to respond any differently than you might yourself. You turn off. You turn away. You start to get maybe negative feelings about companies that don't respect who you are, don't understand who you are, or don't market to you as a consumer, as an intelligent consumer, as someone who they deserve to get your money from, right? So there's a value equation that's important there. The other line that he said, which I think is a great one for everyone to take away if you want to write it down, it's really easy to remember though, do as you would be done by. So when he was in the advertising field, he sort of said, just understand that you can't go out there and expect that everybody's different from you. Right? At the end of the day, we are all consumers. We can't necessarily base all of our decisions on how we consume things because what I consume and what you consume might be very, very different in certain areas. So, but at the end of the day, we all want to be respected as consumers, and we all have hard-earned money that we want to put out for products or services. So do as you would be done by. So respect your consumer, and that's really, really important. Treat them like you would want to be treated. So the context for all this, for social media, yeah, it's kind of bullshit. It's also free, it's also effective, it's also exciting, and it's changing the media landscape. We've seen what's happened in the news media because of social media. You can get news faster via social media than you can by respected news organizations. True? Right? We hear about uprisings and unrest and revolutions. I just heard a note from the other day from ATV News. Respected news source will give you the detail behind the actual tweet. Right? Right? So they're going about sort of, quality versus obviously, the instantaneous sort of, and obviously 140 character sort of news item. So I see social media as kind of a promotional tool, right? Just like advertising, just like PR, just like engagement, just like a salesperson that could be out there. So it's just another tool in the marketing mix, and you got to figure out how best to use it. Don't just go out and get it. Don't go out and use it because it's free, but go out and figure out how does it fit in your total marketing mix to help you with whatever your goals and objectives are. So the first thing, again, is really just to think about it in that mix. I wanted to end on one little interesting project. Does anyone remember the Pepsi Refresh Project? Anyone not know what the Pepsi Refresh Project was? It's okay not to know. Okay, so in 2010, Pepsi made this bold announcement that they were going to take their advertising from the Super Bowl, where it costs about $2 million plus for 30 seconds of advertising, and they were going to put it all into social media in this new experiment called the Pepsi Refresh Project. And they went all over social media, Facebook and everything, and said, we want to go out to all of our Pepsi drinkers, all of our consumers, and ask them to create projects where we could actually put this money. It could be, charitable projects. It could be community building projects. It could be whatever you wanted. There was whatever you wanted, and then people voted on them, and they distributed the money. It was bold. It was audacious. It was kind of cool. I actually voted on a couple of projects. It was very, very different. And, of course, social media was lit up about it. People were talking about Pepsi being a new age marketer, being really, really brave to do this. Guess what happened? Pepsi is now the #3 cola in the cola wars. What's number 2? Number 2, do you know? Guess. Number 2, cola. Nope. Kind of a trick question. Coca-Cola is number 1.
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke is number 2. Right? Diet Coke is number 2. They get some problems coming up too. But Pepsi lost a little bit of share. And it didn't get them the sort of return that they wanted. They got a lot of sort of kudos for what they had done, but it didn't move the needle in terms of sales. What they found was that people that were voting on the project weren't even Pepsi drinkers. So they got a lot of sort of goodwill, a lot of value, a bold thing, but 2 years later, they're back to re-energizing their marketing mix. I don't know if they'll go back to the Super Bowl, but there's a couple of great marketing case studies and some couple of marketing professors that are weighing in on it online now. If you ever want to follow up on it, it is going to be a pretty good case study, I think, in the future for what did they go too early? Did they not do it properly? Did they not execute well? What happened? Because it was a $10 million initiative. Yeah. Second thing, near and dear to my heart, branding. You guys do branding in class? Good. Yes? No? Yes? Okay. So, everybody know what a brand is? Shake. No? Okay, that's good. Brand image and branding. Anybody know the difference between the three? Yeah, so it's the action around creating a brand, nurturing a brand, managing a brand. And it is the responsibility of a marketer, right? So a brand exists, but someone has to be sort of smart and bright and intuitive to create that brand. I'll give you a definition, and I'll take you back for a little quiz. My definition of branding: sum total of impressions that you create in the consumer's mind about a product, service, or organization. Real simple. So it's not about me as the marketer. It's about the impressions that I create in the consumer's mind. Not what I say, but what people take away. Okay, so I can say X, and if they think Y, it is Y. Perception is reality, right? So it's the sum total of everything from interactions with a retail store, advertising, the product itself and the product user experience. All those things create an image. What is the #1 brand in the world? And I'm going to quote, there's probably several people that will tell you this, but Interbrand just published, and they've published for the last 8 or 10 years, the most valuable brands in the world. Does anybody know what the #1 brand in the world is according to Interbrand? Johnson & Johnson. Coca-Cola. Tide. Procter & Gamble. All good guesses. Apple is the #1 brand in the world. Here's the crazy thing. They just displaced someone else. Anybody know who it was? They just displaced Coca-Cola after 13 years on the top. Stranger even more, even stranger than this, Coca-Cola is now the #3 brand in the world. Anyone want to guess on #2? You said Google. You read the report, didn't you? Yeah. Google is now the #2 brand in the world. And again, the way that they measure brands is about the value, the contribution that the brand makes to their bottom line. Right? So they get down to all kinds of measures about sort of how much money is in this brand. If you took it all away, what would they create in terms of value? So what's going on in the branding world? Well, I like to say today that branding is easy because I can start a new company tomorrow. I think you guys, somebody here did the entrepreneur session? Or is that the one going on right now? Right? People come up, startups are hot right now, entrepreneurialism is very hot. People can come up with a new product tomorrow, create their brand and invent whatever they want. Colors, representations, how they go to market, everything can be made up in mere moments, over a weekend, and it has been done. And companies like Google, which wasn't around 20 years ago, right, can be worth billions of dollars, right, in a very, very short period of time. So it's easy in a sense that you can make it up, but I guess with it comes the baggage, right? If you make a mistake, if you don't make good on your brand promise, if you disappoint in terms of your product, then you've got a lot of work to do. I used to say it was really hard. Like, imagine being a company like IBM. IBM 10, 15 years ago used to make machines. In fact, they grew up making big machines, big computing machines. Then they get into PCs and desktops and laptops. And then they decided they wanted to become the solutions company. And it took them probably 3-5 years to even sort of start to move the needle on kind of the new kind of IBM, which was all about consulting and solutions and not about boxes and hardware. In fact, they even sold off all of their PC line to Lenovo, right? So they transformed the company. But can you imagine the marketing people sitting around the boardroom table saying, how are we going to do this? And how long do you think it's going to take? Because IBM was known for making good boxes, right? Computing power. And now they were going to be selling brain power, right? And I think they've done a pretty good job of it in sort of repositioning the company in terms of their new consulting offering. But it's taken them an awful long time, right? And an awful lot of money.
They have a very comprehensive brand strategy, which certainly succeeded in their ability to make that transition. And I agree that it's very simple to brand yourself now. All the tools are there. One man can do it from a home office, and it's never been easier.
Yeah.
But to me, it's never been harder to do well. I see.
You're reading ahead, aren't you?
No, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But I'm glad we're
No, and I'm being somewhat facetious because the challenge of brand management, whether it is a pizza shop or if it's IBM, it doesn't matter. Everybody has a brand. Every company, every person has their own personal brand, and everything that you do creates an impression, right? You know the old dreaded sort of typo on your CV. What's that do for your personal brand? Right? Can you recover from it? And maybe the next interview. but there's things that you need to do. You need to ebb and flow, and obviously develop and manage that impression going forward. So it is easy in that the tools are available and the tools are cheap and everyone has it within their means. It's a very, very difficult job to kind of be constantly on top of all of those interactions and making sure that you create the right impression in people's minds. Christina, your favorite subject. How many people here know, you must know about Google AdWords? Anybody here have an account? 3? 4? No? 3? Anybody know about AdSense? Anybody have an account? Have an account? Good. Here's what I want to leave you with internet marketing. It is changing the way everyone does business. The internet. Little thing called the internet. It's changing the way that business works. We are truly in a global economy. You can buy almost anything on the internet. Crazy. Crazy. I remember 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no one will ever buy cars on the internet. They do today. Look at Kijiji. No one will ever buy houses on the internet. It's a big purchase decision. It's too many emotions. You can't just. People are doing it. Look at Viewpoint. Right? People can buy, if you want to buy spare parts for any aircraft gun or a jet plane, a military jet plane. You can buy them on the internet. Believe it or not, right? It's amazing how quickly our buying intentions are changing over time. And so with this, I think there's a call for all marketers to go out there and do something and to understand how this is working. One of the biggest transformations that I'm seeing right now is Sales 2.0. Anybody? Christina? Okay, Sales 2.0. It is basically taking the enterprise sales organization and turning it into an inbound marketing team, sales and marketing team. So whereas in the olden days, if we had, say, a complex sale like a piece of technology, we used to hire enterprise salespeople. We used to go out and knock on the doors, and we used to sort of introduce our product at trade shows. We used to advertise in trade publications, and we used to talk about the features and benefits of this particular product. And we used to send people travel all over North America or the world trying to create a market. Now what we do is we direct them all into inbound marketing teams, right? Because if you want to find out anything, name anything you want to buy, anything. First thing on the top of your mind. New laptop. Google it. What do you want to buy? A book? Any book?
Any book?
Yeah, any book or just a book?
Just a book.
I think Amazon, anywhere, right? Tires. Take you right to Kijiji. If you want to find out information today, does anyone use the Yellow Pages anymore? Yeah, but in the past we used to go to the Yellow Pages and we used to look for a guy to fix our window or a plumber or an electrician. What do you do today? Google it, right? And it's amazing what kind of information gets served up. What's happening too is now I'm in an organization, someone says, you know what? We need to replace our accounting system. And they sort of say, okay, Hayes, young whippersnapper, you go out there and do a review of what's out there and come back and bring a report to the management team. We'll see what options are available. So what will I do? I'll go out and Google accounting systems for mid-sized companies, and I'll see what comes back. And then I'll look at reviews, I'll look at blogs, I'll look at user posts from people that have these systems, and I'll bring a report back. Meanwhile, while I've done that, what's happening, Christina? But when I put in accounting systems, and when I put in like small business accounting packages, what's going to happen? Right. And what are they going to do? No, but what's Simply Accounting going to do? Right? Simply Accounting is going to track me. And they're going to probably show ads when I go and look at my travel site, because they're going to say Simply Accounting is the #1, medium-sized business accounting firm. Eventually, I might get an email from a salesperson wanting to get together and discuss my needs. I'll get a phone call several times. Hey, I heard you're in the market for. So they know what I'm doing, and they follow it up, and they use this opportunity to engage me, to find out what my needs are, to find out what my decision-making process is, to find out if I'm a decision maker, if they need to talk to the big guys upstairs, how much money we have to spend. And the processes all happen with a person sitting in front of a computer and a phone in wherever, Podunk, Iowa, doesn't really matter, because they don't have to come out and visit and find targets because they can do it via the internet. So, 2 things you should take away. Number 1, if you don't have an AdWords account, get one. If you don't have an AdSense account, get one. You'll also get Google Plus and Google Hangout with that, so we'll be increasing the, the speed. But I would suggest to everyone here that if you can take AdWords, AdSense, and Google Analytics and put that as a skill set on your resume, you will increase your marketability by at least 50%. Not all the companies out there have figured this out. When they do, there will be great demand, and it'll be a great differentiator for you if you can do this. Now, the great thing is, what does it cost to sign up for a Google AdWords account? 0. So get the accounts, they're free, and then find a customer. Find your favorite pizza shop, find your uncle, find your aunt. If your family has a business, ask them if you can do some marketing for them. See if you can get them to spend $100 so you can go out and experiment a little bit. See if you can drive some traffic to a website and show them that e-commerce does work. Anything that you can do to sort of experiment and figure it out and to put this on your resume will help you, will bode well for the future. I have a guy that works for me, is turning down offers at double his salary because he's really good at it. Double his salary because people are out there looking for people that know how to do this. I don't even know how to do this, but I hired the right people to do this. But it's a great skill that you can learn on your own, and it just takes a little bit of experimentation. There's lots of blog posts, there's lots of activity, lots of information out there to learn how, but you got to do it. You can't just understand the theory, you got to go out and do it. So it's a hot field. It's a great way to get on for a first job, and it's a great way to sort of build your salary expectations for sure. What's the next best thing to be sold on the internet? Oh, good answer. All right. Oh. How many iPhone 5Ss did Apple sell? Do you know this? In the first day, or in the first couple of days that they made it available. Anybody know?
2 million. More? 6 million.
I think it was something like 9 million units.
Yeah. Well, they weren't delivered. They didn't deliver 9 million.
No, but
Pre-sold 9 million.
it's crazy. Now you got to ask yourself. I always think a marketer's job is to create demand, right? We talk about consumer behavior. We talk about consumer needs and wants. At the end of the day, somebody, that's the smart marketers, have to create demand, right? They have to find a way to make people line up, to make people walk into the shop, to make people press enter once they put in their credit card information online. Someone has to do that, and that's the smart marketers. But is it as easy as Apple makes it out to be? Like, do I just have to sort of say, hey, I got a new product announcement? Everyone will be excited. In fact, they didn't have a new product announcement. They had a product enhancement. It wasn't even a new product. It was just an enhancement on an existing product. They still had hundreds of thousands of people lined up. So is it as simple as that? The one thing that, it's probably the reason they're the #1 brand in the world, the one thing that they do really, really well is they anticipate consumer needs, right? And they try and develop around that. It's not easy to create demand, but it's something you have to keep working on all the time. Now I say, how about this? I'll just do a viral video, right? Just imagine people sitting around the table, a boardroom like this. Someone says, I got it. This is it. We're going to create a viral video. They think for a second. Someone says, Eureka! I know what it is. Do you know what it is? What does the fox say? What does the fox say? 120 million views on that video. Didn't sell anything, though. I've used that as an example. Viral videos. Best marketing tool ever. I don't know anyone who's ever done one.
marketplace
Creates
creates
it.
the viral video. You just make a video and hope that it goes that way. But I could throw this huge net out there all day, every day, and never catch a fish. Or I can have a very like honed in, like sharp pencil and write something really good. You know what I mean? So I'm not a huge fan of that because it's labor intensive to continually do that over and over again. Like that's why I find social media can be a real drag, is because it can be labor intensive.
Yeah.
You really want to tie people up to doing Twitter all day long.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of colleagues that have been trying to, that have, that are professionals that work in the business, can do high quality videos. They can get in cool directors. They can do a whole bunch of things, but not one of them has ever created a viral video or video that has gone viral. Although I'm sure that they probably pitched it many times. When you get back to creating demand, what is different now? What is different now than, say, in the past for marketers and creating demand? My past, not your past. Well, remember that internet thing? You can access your market globally, right? So the access to the market, there are no barriers to market entry with the internet. If you have a product that you can sell online, you can sell pretty much anywhere. Maybe a little bit of trouble in China, depending on what you have and what the blockages are. But for the most part, the world is your market. So even though you make something in Atlantic Canada, you can sell it anywhere. Right? Whereas before, if I made something in Atlantic Canada, I had to look at how do I ship it? How do I get it to market? How far can I go? Can I afford to send it somewhere else? Will it cost me too much to get somewhere? Right? It may still cost too much now. We still have problems with postage and couriers, but I think that's the only inhibitor in terms of internet sales actually really taking off. The other thing we can do is we can get people to trial our product online. Right? Beta trials. We can ask people to talk about our product. We can get referrals from people. So all of these things are sort of a lot more accessible to us, and they're cheap and easy to be able to go out there and start to create demand. So I'm sure that the brain trust of Apple didn't just sort of say, we're going to pick September 27th as the day of the launch for the 5S and the 5C. Probably 6 months down the previous, they were sitting there with lots and lots of people around the room saying, okay, how are we going to do this? What's our PR strategy? What are we going to leak out there? What are we going to do in the days? How are we going to tell them about the new features? How are we going to get them excited about this sort of stuff? How are we going to tell them about the manufacturing? How are we going to make plastic sexy? How are we, these are the kind of questions that they were sort of going around. And at the end of the day, 6 months or 3 months or however long it took them to get it out there, they were using all of these channels to help build demand. But it all started with having a strategy and working it through. The beauty, again, about creating demand today is that you can do it almost instantaneously, and that comes with a double-edged sword, right? If you can't build enough product, you could actually get yourself in trouble. My favorite subject in marketing is ROI, return on investment. And I say this because I believe every marketer, we don't have a professional designation, but every marketer that wastes money, that does foolish things, that screws it for me and the rest of you around here, they hurt us because our profession sometimes is open to kind of like big mistakes, like, I don't know, new Coke. And people spend years and years and years analyzing what went wrong. What decisions did they make? Where did they take the wrong path? But I believe that throughout my career and throughout your career, if you can take this with you, you should be accountable to yourself. Accountable to yourself. So if you're going to spend someone's advertising budget, and I've had budgets of $22 million at my disposal when I was 27 years old. $22 million. It got to a point that I just took the zeros off the end and just went 22 mil. Not like 6 sets of zeros. I could never imagine how much money that is, but that's the kind of money that's sometimes entrusted to you. But you still have to spend it like your own. Because at the end of the day, someone is going to say one day, well, we spent $22 million or $5 million or $1,000. What do we get for it? I had a CFO at a company I used to work at. I had many CFOs, I guess, and they had difficulty understanding what marketing did. All they saw was that marketing was an expense, not an investment, but an expense, because it showed up in the expense column, not in the revenue column. And so I took away from that early in my career that at the end of the day, I had to sell them on the value of marketing. I had to teach them on how marketing was an investment, how a dollar spent should be able to return $2. If it wasn't, we shouldn't spend the money. And so it's important that we take that forward as well. We got lots of tools today. We got Google Analytics, we've got engagement measures, we've got click-throughs, we've got likes, we've got a lot of tools that are available to measure everything that we do. And they're important, but there's only one thing that really matters in marketing. Anybody know what it is? Sales. Because that's the thing that's going to put more money into the marketing budget next year. Simple as that. Right? Nothing matters more than driving sales. So we talked about marketers create demand, salespeople sell stuff, but at the end of the day, your measure has to be driving sales. I want to tell you a little story. I used to work for a big beer company, I think it got mentioned, and we were on a pay-per-performance contract. So if we helped to drive their measures, their metrics, we could actually make more money than our fees in bonuses. So one year, it was a really good year. We increased brand awareness, we increased brand preference, we increased our place in the circle of brands that people would choose. So what was my second choice? If I couldn't get this brand, what would be my second choice? We blew away all the measures, and they had to pay us a bonus, and they did. God bless them, they paid us a bonus. But they hated it because it was a shitty summer, it was raining a lot, and beer sales were down, and market share was down. So we drove all the measures except for market share and revenue and profitability. So they still had to write the check because they made the commitment, and they did that. But at the end of the day, the only thing that mattered to them was about revenue, right? So always remember, at the end of the day, you're going to spend $1 to make $1. This is our part of the value equation. Spend your money like your own, and revenue is the only thing that matters. Christina, you good with that?
Oh, yeah.
Number 6, word-of-mouth advertising. Everybody knows what that is, right? Again, back in the good old days, word of mouth was, in fact, before even the Pony Express in the caveman days, it was about sort of communicating things and sending it places, and it was a form of communication. It was also the best form of free advertising, right? To have someone out there talking about your product and promoting your product. What's different today is that we have so many more tools and platforms for people to voice their opinions, right? So I can try a product, and I can recommend it on Facebook. I can find out that my friend is looking to buy something and give them some places where they could go to buy it, refer them a sales agent, an accountant, a lawyer, again, electronically. Someone could endorse you on LinkedIn, which is, again, another form of advertising for your personal brand. They can endorse you for certain skill sets. And you could read about a new product, I don't know, maybe like an iPhone 5S or a 5C or whatever the case may be on a tech blog. Or you might learn about a new food product on a food blog, if you're so inclined. Again, those are free. They're not easy, but they come with trust. They come with a referral, comes with trust in that. If Christina says to me, look, I've looked all over the place, and I would suggest the best bang for your buck in buying a laptop computer is HP, well, then I have not only the recommendation of HP, I also have Christina's recommendation, and because I think that she knows a little bit about tech stuff, it's even more, and it's third party. It's not HP telling me it's great, it's Christina telling me that HP is great. So it's a great form of advertising, and still as effective today as it was then, but again, got to figure out how to use those tools to make that work to our advantage. Yep.
When we talk about word of mouth, yes, it is because it's someone that you know and you value their opinion. What would you consider then, like, let's say, for example, that you're going on vacation and you want to advertise it, and you're reading up about the hotel that you want to go to, could be their 100th trip. That's influencing us. Would you still consider that word of mouth?
Well, it is word of mouth. And remember, there's also negative word of mouth, right? I guess Dave Carroll spoke about that earlier, right? So there's negativity, and then there's also your own filter, right? You might be looking at sort of comments and sort of saying, oh, well, those are all from family people, but I'm a business person. All I want is a clean bed and in and out of the lobby so I can get in the car and get to my meetings. Or, you know, those are business people and they're really, really fussy. I really want something that's going to be good for my family, and I have young kids, and therefore I want something that's going to have amenities that was. So you do put a little bit of filter on them. I guess there's that one warning that we've always had. The news media will always tell you is don't believe everything that you read on the internet. And also, when people tell you stuff, right? If 10 people tell you stuff, you know, maybe 8 of them are credible, 8 of them are believable. I think you have to apply your own sort of filter to some of that stuff. Now, a really good example, you know, kind of product of mine that I'm kind of still wondering what's going to happen is Yelp. Anybody use Yelp? Right. So it's you know, I think it's very relevant in New York City, very relevant in LA. You get into sort of, you know, the kind of representation in Halifax. I don't think it's achieved its kind of its penetration. But, you know, you can go on there, and if there's a new restaurant, there's usually someone in there who's made a comment. But it might be 5. Is 5 a representative sample? Statistics people, is 5 a representative sample? No? Right? So you need sort of some numbers, and you start to see people like TripAdvisor now saying, well, 97% of the people approve this, as opposed to, you know, and you may want to look at that texture. So you have to kind of take it all with a grain of salt. You have to sort of apply your own filter. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. And I think over the past 5 or 10 years, the news media said, don't believe anything you see on the internet. And you see, I think, people just becoming more responsible that are maybe bloggers and or individuals as opposed to journalists, quoting sources, doing their fact checking, doing their spell checking, and sort of bringing the quality of the value up. The thing is, for a service organization, and I expect there's a lot of people that would be interested in this on the tourism side, is on the service organization, the people that complain are usually the crackpots, right? It takes a lot more for people to go and give you a bouquet than it does to complain about a bad experience. That's the reality, so you have to take a little bit of it with a grain of salt and measure, you know, how it comes in. Number 7, the best ideas always win. And if you're a marketer, we talked a little bit about the future in internet marketing and about AdWords and analytics and AdSense and all these tools that are out there. And I know some people that are building their careers on just understanding the Sales 2.0 and understanding how to create inbound marketing. But they haven't got any imagination. And to me, marketing is about part art and part science. So the measurement and the analytics and the metrics, all that is very, very important, because at the end of the day, we have to have some way to sort of guide what we're doing, whether it's right or not. But there is something magical about an idea. Because ideas can excite you, ideas can delight you, ideas can motivate you to do things. And if you don't believe me, ask Steve Jobs. Right? He went against everyone way, way back in the beginning when computers had to be gray. He went and made wacky colored ones. He went against the grain because he had an idea. He had an idea that design and simplicity and elegance would appeal to people. And he obviously went at that with sort of a laser sharp focus. But ideas excite us. And if you don't believe me, look at the ideas that come out in movie trailers. Right? We see a little snippet of something and we sort of buy into it. And then we go and spend our money to go see the movie because there's something in there that excites us. And it might be something like, you know, it's the end of the world and zombies are coming. But it might also be sort of about the power of love or the power of relationships. If you think about kind of movies that are coming out, and it all starts with an idea. And all these guys, these Hollywood movie producers, they have to start with an idea, and they usually have to pitch it in one sentence before they get out there. And so what they do and what they spend in terms of Hollywood blockbusters, it's a great a start point that it all starts with a germ of an idea. Same thing with marketing. I mean, at the end of the day, You need to be able to do the analytics. You need to be able to do the sort of the metrics. You need to be able to sort of strategize and everything else. But at the end of the day, the magic comes when you come up with ideas. So you need to put that in your skill set as well. And there's lots of ideas out there. Some are good, some are bad. But if you can create ideas, and you can actually sell them as currency. Great example. People know me as a marketing guy, and so I usually get the, hey, you can make this kind of snappy, can't you? You can kind of make our trade show booth stand out on the floor. You have some ideas that can make our company successful, and my answer is always, of course I do, because that's what they expect from a marketer, right? Is someone who's going to bring ideas that sort of help to propel growth. So make that part of your repertoire going forward. It's very, very important. It sort of gets lost, I think, a little bit in the days of pure measurement and analytics, but at the end of the day, it's a multiplier. So a good idea is a multiplier for success. That is the 7 things that you should know about marketing that have changed. There is a moral to my story. You know what it is, so you can't answer. Anybody know what it is? What's that?
There's a fool born every day. Sell anything to anybody. If it's the right price and it looks good enough.
A little bit of that.
This is the way to do things until it isn't. Like, these are all great for the next technology, interactive technology comes along.
Okay, so really good point here. So technology is a really big influence on sort of what's happening in the world of marketing. But, so was television, like 30, 40 years ago. And before that, the printing press. So you could actually sort of put advertising message out into magazines and newspapers and distribution. So technology is a big influence today. It's a big influence on your lives. It's a big influence in your personal brands. So marketers must always sort of evolve and understand sort of there's new technology, therefore, how would the fundamentals of marketing apply in this particular case? So I hope what I showed you here was sort of also a little bit of, things change, but they still remain the same, right? So the stuff that you're learning today will have relevance in 20 years and 30 years' time, but it might look different. It might have a different sort of cast on it. It might be applied a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's still about trying to motivate somebody to do something, to buy, purchase, experience your product. So technology is a big force. We have to sort of move and move with the tide. The other thing is that as much as things change and they remain the same, it still comes back to you got to have a good plan. So marketing strategy is so important. Got to have a good plan. Second most important thing is you need to execute the plan. Right? And in my experience, I see people with great plans and poor execution, and so the plan sucked. It wasn't the plan necessarily, it was the execution. See people with terrible plans but good execution, and they actually deliver some degree of success. Poor plan, but execution. So a lot of it is just getting it done. You need to, most importantly, understand your consumer, right? Because at the end of the day, they're the people that you're asking to interact with, asking to buy. And I call this a marketing game every now and then, but most importantly, it's all about winning, right? So being successful, driving market share, driving revenue. Your last big success is your ticket to your next job. Certainly as a consultant, I have to eat what I kill, and so I have to kind of keep breeding success. But again, if you're out there building your resume and you start out at company XYZ and you want to make a jump to a bigger company or a smaller company or somewhere where you have more responsibility, first thing they're going to ask you is, so what did you do at company XYZ? What did you achieve? What did you create? And so it's important that you always have that winning attitude. It is a bit of a game, but at the end of the day, if we're winning, then we're always going to be employed. And if we're winning, then we're always going to make people happy. And if we're making people happy with marketing, I'm happy and I've succeeded today. All right, over to you. What's number 8? Okay, now your professors are failing me. Is there any other ideas that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up that you think may have been missed at the back? Thanks. Sorry?
I guess it kind of ties into ideas.
No, I think that's a really, it's a good addition, right? And what you say was user experiences, and I think there's a couple things that happen here. Is, first off, there was a big move maybe 10 years ago to talk about in retail, the retail experience and brand experience, about taking certain brands and creating a different retail environment and a different experience where people wouldn't come and say, "Can I help you and can I sell to you?" They'd sort of go and spray cologne on you and make you feel good about being in the environment. If you look at how retail design evolved and how like stores like Hollister and others sort of had different sort of design, and they went against the grain, but they were very, very successful because they were trying to create experiences. And they believed that in that retail experience that you were more prone to be able to buy or to try or to sort of leave more money behind. I think what becomes really, really important today, certainly in the technology space, again, big words, and a lot of focus now on user interface and the user experience. First off, you don't want to go to a website and have it not work. Secondly, if you want to go and buy something, you want it to be easy and seamless. Thirdly, you don't want to have to, log in 16 times, remember 13 passwords, and do everything. And you still want to have your privacy. You still want to have control over your bank accounts. But at the end of the day, it's fun to buy things, right? And that's part of the experience. So when you go buy something, if you go buy new clothes and you go put them on, it's an important experience. If you go buy something online, there's a little bit of, I got it, it's coming, in 3 days I'm going to have so much fun. And then there's another experience when it comes to the door through Canada Post or FedEx, and you get that sort of product. So, but the experience is really, really important, I think, when it comes to the branding, because at the end of the day, the most successful marketers are the ones not focused on this sale, but on the repeat sale and repeat business. So I think that's a really, really good point, and one that is deserving.
All of those are great points. However, I mean, it's like when you bake a cake, you can take all the ingredients, and if I just give you a list of ingredients, and you throw them all in a bowl, that's not how you make a cake. You need to effectively execute all of those things. You can put out a social media website, you can put your Twitter hashtags, all your Facebook and all of that sort of stuff on there. And if you don't manage all of those things, I mean, you gotta do you can't do it all at once. So you gotta do it bit by bit. And if you're the entrepreneur and you gotta do that yourself, well then you gotta do it yourself. But when you're part of these larger companies, I mean, it's an effective use of different resources. I mean, people have a marketing department, and the marketing department is used to working in a very traditional sort of sense. Well, you need to redirect the people that were working out here, and you need to bring them down into here, dealing with things like, for example, I just joined Facebook not that long ago. I'm in my 40s, retired from the military, going back to school. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get on the Facebook. And so you start to see on there, and people have, you put something on there, and then somebody clicks a like. And then, you start to like other people's things, and then maybe you comment on them. And getting the feedback, like if I like a product, well, I mean, what's that going to do for me? Nothing. Sticks it on my page. But if they contact me back and say, hey, by the way, we noticed you happen to like this or whatever, and I'm not going to put an advertisement, but like if they engage you, and if you properly engage people with social media, then that's great. But how many, you got all these friends on Facebook, but if they're not engaging you, if they're not part of your life, then you're going to get rid of them off of Facebook. And it's the same thing for that. At least I think you need to be effective, and you really got to do it. It's one thing to say I'm going to do it, but you really have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, my daughter's 22, and she looked at me one day and said, "You have Twitter?" It's like, yeah, aren't I allowed to? And she's like, I just didn't know you did that sort of stuff. And it was like, well, I also was on Vine and Instagram and a whole bunch of other things, just because I think it's just important for your business to understand, what it's all about, and then to find a way to make it fit. So it's free. Try it. It may not be for you, but the important thing is, I'm not a big Facebook guy, but I know a lot of people that are. And so I need to understand, as a marketer, the people that are big into Facebook or big into sort of Twitter and about telling everyone in the world where they're going to be and what they're doing. That's a really interesting consumer behavior, right? And so it's also, if you think about the age of mobile and mobile advertising, I know there's just tremendous opportunities there to sort of tap into that sort of psyche for that particular segment of the population. Probably some really good local advertising opportunities.
I think a good one to put there would be publicity versus advertising. Recognize the opportunities in publicity versus advertising. Advertising is expensive, publicity is free. And
I would challenge that.
well, the textbook definition in public relations terms, that public relations, in a public relations sense, is that publicity is free and advertising costs money. But over these fields, you're
Yeah.
right, there's some difference to that. But advertising doesn't necessarily always generate publicity. There's lots of poor advertising out there that I don't even look twice at.
Oh, no.
There's lots of publicity out there, like that I like. The best example of that is Red Bull. Red Bull does things all the time that have nothing to do with advertising that are fantastic publicity. Like they have that thing where you build your own airplane and run
Yep.
it off the end of a dock.
Yeah.
It costs nothing.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I could put a chicken suit on and run around downtown and get way more publicity than if I spend all day on Twitter or I spend all day on Facebook. I can get lost in the maze, or I can spread my advertising dollars out and not get much for them, or I can generate publicity and get a lot for it. A good example is, and I hate this example, but it's good, is I can't stand Miley Cyrus. She drives me crazy. But she just did the greatest publicity campaign maybe ever pulled off, because her album just went to #1. And how many people in here actually like what she does, right? So how does she get a #1 album? By hanging naked on a wrecking ball and sticking her tongue out sideways every 10 seconds. It's true. But how much publicity did she generate by that? That didn't cost her anything to stick her tongue out sideways. It didn't cost her anything to act like a goof and annoy the hell out of people. But man, it sure did generate a lot of publicity, and it got her all the attention. So that's where I think in a lot of cases people they don't really understand the difference, and then they focus all their hard-earned marketing budget, which is in small business terms very small.
Yeah.
And they don't think about they don't take the guerrilla advertising stuff very seriously. Guerrilla marketing, dressing up in a chicken suit, or what I do is I have an Escalade that's wrapped, and I have a projector in it. And I drive up and down the street, and I project our image on the side of buildings. And when I'm driving, it's still projecting. So people are like, what was that just going by on the building? I made $5 bills up that have our advertisement on the side. I fold it 3 ways. I throw it on the ground. I've never had anyone walk by one. I sit in Starbucks and I just flick them in front of the thing. It says,
What's your business?
My email address or my website address on it, and it says this is not legal tender, but it looks just like a $5 bill. So when I throw it there, they pick it up every time.
What's your business?
I run Extreme Police Combat.
Oh, cool.
Which is a national program.
I'm going to take exception to your assertion that that publicity doesn't cost.
Well, it can cost.
Yeah,
But you can-
any PR grads here or PR potential grads? Yeah. So, it doesn't happen by itself, right?
Maybe it's not a monetary cost, but I mean,
Well, what, you do it for free?
well,
You like to get paid? Salaries, that sort of stuff? Benefits, CPP. So it's true that advertising costs additional dollars, and publicity, if you have the resources, is a soft cost or a built-in cost of your people. Yeah. So, and the movie and the music industry are great at publicists. I mean, like them or not, I study the Kardashians because they move a lot of product. I don't like it. It sort of bothers me sometimes, but they're masters at publicity. I mean, they get their. It's a real interesting study, and a lot of people follow them. right? So, you know, how it works for you, I guess, is again coming back to sort of finding the right sort of mix. I spent 15 years as a paid advertising expert, and so I do know that you can produce good, effective advertising that drives sales.
For sure.
And there's a lot of people that waste a lot of money on stupid things, right? You know, one of the most celebrated examples of the 80s and 90s was the Body Shop, which said they would never advertise. And they didn't advertise. But they spent a lot of money and put a lot of effort into publicity and publicity stunts and sort of non-paid media. So they did it other ways, but it worked for them. Red Bull, great example. They do advertise. They advertise quite a lot. They do a lot of television advertising. But they have a great sponsorship strategy that takes the unique Red Bull experience and puts it into an event that no one else can own. And then they get it picked up on television shows, and it gets shown around the world, and then they sell advertising within their own shows. So it's absolutely brilliant. But again, it's all about finding the right thing for the brand, finding the right sort of opportunity for particular product or service, but what works for you as well in terms of creating a little bit of interest in a extreme way would work well for that kind of product for you.
Yeah, because it's a fringe product. It's not. It's the fastest growing sport in North America.
Yeah.
But it's still on the fringe of athletics.
Yeah.
People still see fighting as barbaric and kind of need to change their mind and make them realize that these are athletes first, and that fighting is what they do.
Yeah.
Because all athletes are fighters. If you've ever run a marathon, you got to be a fighter to make it to the finish.
It's true.
We've only got about 10 minutes left. One of the things that, I don't know if you probably have something there that's a question and answer. Maybe, can you just for the sake of students in the room, I know that you've held many executive level positions and now have gone out on your own and that, are successful in that. When you started though, if you can remember that far back, can you tell the students in the room, if they are interested in a career in marketing, where do you think they'll start? What should they look for if they're going out to, say, a marketing firm? What kind of jobs can they expect? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's I say this in general about just jobs in general, whether it's marketing or whether it's business jobs or whether it's just jobs. I believe that there are plenty of opportunities for employment out there. And I have to say that because I have to sing from my supper every day. But there are plenty of opportunities out there, and sometimes the job is about, your job is to find them. And I don't even know what the stat is now, but in my day the stat was that 70% of all jobs are never advertised. Right? And so I think it's still true today to some extent that there are a lot of jobs that there's, executive recruitment firms, and then there's online sort of opportunities. But there's a lot that aren't, because things are going on and people don't think about it, and it might just be that you show up one day on the doorstep and happenstance, or magic happens that they have a need and you have a skill set, and magic happens. So I truly believe in that, and I tell that to my own kids, and I tell that to people that I counsel and mentor when they're going out and getting jobs. The best time to get a job is when you have a job. I know that's hard when you're a student, but when you're out there as a student, it's sort of like it's kind of like an upside down pyramid, right? There's a lot of you. A lot are going to graduate at once, and they're all trying to get the perfect match with the one or two employment opportunities that are out there. I think I'll tell you a couple of stories which I think are kind of relevant. At the end of the day, you just got to figure out what you want to do and then just go get it. I absolutely believe in that. So you might have to go around and find not the perfect opportunity, but a work opportunity that allows you to do something. I make a lot of money today as a consultant with small and medium-sized businesses that can't get out of their own way to grow. Don't tell anyone I said this, because it'll ruin all of it. But what happens is you get a company and it starts off and it goes from 8 to 10 to 20 to 30 employees, and then it gets sort of stalled. It hits a plateau, and it doesn't know how to necessarily get to the next level. Largely because you get a founder or a an inventor, somebody who can't lead past that next level, can't delegate, can't bring in the right people that are smarter than them to take them to the next level. And it's not a marketing thing, it's an HR thing. It's about finding the right sort of talent and getting to the right sort of place. So I focus on small and medium-sized businesses, fast growth, and look for people that have problems. Because if people have problems, I can help turn them into opportunities. So I think for what I take away from all that, there's the whole world needs a lot more marketers. And so if you have a friend or a family or a business or any sort of association somewhere, don't be afraid to do some part-time work. Don't be afraid to sort of offer your services. Don't be afraid to sort of ask, because if you don't ask, you'll never know. Worst thing they can say is no, right? But you can sort of find your way to get in there and find your way to sort of create some value for them. Very first job I had, unpaid. I worked at the very first job I had, I got out of university, I was a waiter, actor actually, no. I was a waiter, and one night I was in a really, really fancy restaurant, and these two guys showed up with their wives and had dinner. And it turns out one of them was the managing director of a top 10 US-based advertising agency, and the other was the chief executive officer of a UK-based top 10 firm. And I ended up doing a presentation on cheeses. I had a cheese board, and I explained all the cheeses, and the guy said at the end, he goes, "That was a wonderful presentation. You should work in advertising." And I went, and I'm serving the table. I'm not there to, but I did get their contact. I sent them a letter. I followed up with them. I got interviews with both of them. And I got an interview with one of them at the end, and they said, we're doing our graduate recruitment program, and it starts up in September of next year. Maybe you'd like to be part of that. And I went, no, I'd like to come work for you right now. And I ended up doing a 6-week unpaid internship. And my wife thought I was nuts, and I didn't get a job at that place. I know. Yeah, you're thinking there was supposed to be a moral to the story, right? So while I'm at this company, I get recruited to go out and play softball because I'm Canadian with a bunch of Brits. They don't know how to play softball. I suck at softball, but I'm a star in England, right? So after the softball game, where do we go? You're in England? To a pub. There's all kinds of young advertising people there at the pub, and there's all kinds of people talking about people leaving here and going here and everything else. And I'm finding out all this sort of stuff. And then lo and behold, the next day or the next week, there's an ad in the paper, someone looking for someone at J. Walter Thompson. I applied for the job, and they said, "You're over at Grey now." I said, "Yes, I am." They said, "Oh." And they hired me because I was working at an advertising agency. So, life takes some funny turns, but it just reminded me. First off, I wanted to work in advertising. I went to England. It was a pipe dream. And I got over there, and I wanted to work in advertising, and I got to work in advertising. It took 6 months. It took time, but I really wanted to do it. And at the end of the day, I had to have, a little bit of confidence to be able to say to the managing director, "Here's what I want to do, and here's how I think I can help your company." And then I got my opportunity, and I, went through the ranks, and then came back here and to start a family. The other part of the story is that there's a lot of companies that don't have marketing people. There's a lot of organizations, like not-for-profits, that don't have marketing people, right? So, and they may not ever have a position for a marketing person, like a marketing manager or anything else. But if you could be a marketing manager, slant something, fill in the blanks, for a company, if you can help them, and you can focus on sort of what you can do from a marketing perspective, help grow their business, drive their revenue, get more customers. Who can say no to that? So I think you got to dig deep and find those opportunities. If you wait for them to come along, I would suggest to you that sort of you might wait a little bit longer. There will be lots of jobs. There will be lots of postings, and you can go for them. And the other thing is, you can work anywhere. My daughter was applying to a job in Hawaii because she saw it online. So, a wonderful opportunity that you can apply anywhere, probably at least in the unless you're bilingual, English-speaking world, but you can take the skills anywhere. University degree is really, really well. Outside of Canada, we take it for granted, but everywhere else, it's really, really well received. And again, if you can create value for an organization, then you can earn a paycheck, and if you can create more value, then you can increase your paycheck. Simple as that.